Bad Boys for Life is a third installment in the Bad Boy franchise from director Michael Bay, but in this one, he actually passed on the torch to a directing duo, and it is a Michael Bay light film that is surprisingly a pretty good flick. Bad Boys for Life, of course, stars Will Smith and Martin Lawrence returning to their roles as Detective Mike Lowry and Detective Marcus Burnett. It is a surprisingly good film in that I did not have super high hopes going into it, certainly without Michael Bay directing. The first Bad Boys film was pretty good. I liked it. The second one was just an exercise in excess. Michael Bay really just threw everything in a boat at that one, literally. But this one, you can tell they dialed it back a little bit as both of the main stars, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, are getting a little bit older. So you can see that they're kind of positioned it into a way to play upon the fact that they're older. Specifically, the whole plot is that Marcus is wanting to retire. Mike doesn't want him to. The film opens with them basically like hauling ass through Miami in this little Porsche 911, I think. And they get to the hospital where Marcus's grandson is born, and it's a pretty cute moment because you see Reggie from the second one, the poor boyfriend of his daughter that him and Will tried to run off, and he stuck around. He joined the Marines. At this point, he's a sergeant. And he's like an E7 at this point, and it's good to see them bring that character back in and kind of give some closure in essence to them. It provided for a few couple cute moments where they make comments to him. They're not nearly as mean as they were in the second film, and it kind of starts off right with this film. But like I said, it is Michael Bay light, so they did not go as crazy with this opening chase scene as they could have in a Michael Bay directed film versus a Michael Bay produced film. But it works, and a little bit later, they're at a celebration party, and then Mike challenges Marcus to a race. Says, if I win, you have to not retire. We're, bad boys for life. But Will starts hauling ass, easily pulls away from Marcus, and then all of a sudden, some guy drives up on a motorcycle, pops a wheelie or does an endo, and then basically shoots Mike a couple times. So it does add a little bit of stakes to this film in that the invincible Mike Lowry is actually shot several times and sent to the hospital. And that starts kind of a downward spiral in terms of him, feeling that he's no longer invincible, he's no longer a young guy. And then Marcus, who was always looking for a way out, is finally given that way out. There's a cute little scene where he's praying to God. He's like, man, God, I don't talk to you a lot, but if you would just please save this ignorant ass Mike Lowry, then I will give this shit all up. I'll never harm another life. So a couple months later, it fast forwards, Mike's out of the hospital. He's then told by Captain Howard that Marcus has retired because Mike wants to go after the guy who shot him. His name is Armando. Him and his mother are basically going after the people that brought down their cartel a few years before. And in the time that Mike is in the hospital to once he gets out, I think it gives a time frame of like 4, 5, 6 months, something like that. They're going around killing everybody that was involved, the different cops, the judge, a prosecutor, things like that. And throughout it, Mike's still trying to, he wants to get on the team. And then Captain Howard brings him in and is like, well, you can advise this ammo. It's like kind of a updated tech super squad that they've got set up for the Miami Metro Police Department. And Mike, the way he talks his way onto this one is he goes and finds Manny the Butcher, and he beats him up, basically just beats up DJ Khaled for a little while, finds out who supplied the bullets that shot him. And then he goes and gets on the team, and they then track down the weapons seller. And while they're observing him, Mike has dealt with, Vanessa Hutchins is on this team, along with Alexander Ludwig and a couple other ones. And they're all young cats, and they make a couple old jokes, a couple your mama jokes back and forth between Mike. And some of them are a little bit juvenile, but it's a Bad Boys movie, and that's to be expected. As long as there's not a whole lot of just abhorrent TNA being thrown on the screen for no reason, it works better in this capacity, and it is a decent film up to this point. So Mike sees that they're about to, try to rip off the arms dealer, so he goes in guns blazing, ends up shooting like a couple people, and is unfortunately unable to save the arms dealer. It brings in Captain Howard. He's pissed off, gets mad, yells at Mike a little bit. Look at all these bodies, Mike, ha ha ha. While Marcus is basically retired, at home chilling with his family. And You can tell his wife is ready to get rid of him. There's a couple scenes where she's like, "I'm going to the spa, take care of the baby." Well, it fast forwards a little bit, and then Mike gets a phone, or Marcus gets a phone call from one of his old rats, and he tells him, "Yo, somebody's trying to kill me. They've already took out all my men. Come help me. Come get me." And he's like, "Okay." So he goes, picks up Mike. Then they go to get this guy, and then as they pull up to the condos, the guy gets thrown out, lands on top of Marcus's car, Marcus's wife's car, who immediately calls him right after, and he's like, "She knows, she knows, she always knows." And it's a cute little moment. Mike goes up and gets into a fight with the guy and ends up flipping up his little motorcycle helmet, and he looks at him, kind of a pause, and he sees his eyes and he focuses in on it, kind of thinks. And then it speeds up a little bit where Captain Howard, Mike is at like a basketball game, possibly a daughter or granddaughter of Captain Howard. And he tells him basically, "Mike, you need to hang it up before you get yourself killed or somebody else killed." And then they walk out. And this is the point where the film gets really personal, because as they're walking out, Captain Howard gets shot. And then Mike's there trying to help him, save him. And Captain Howard has been in it through the whole other two films, and he was really like the authoritarian figure. And you can see that he was Mike's friend, and that now Mike kind of has this realization of like, oh my God, it just got serious. Captain Howard's dead, possibly because of me. After Captain Howard is shot, Mike then goes off and tries to track down someone else, and it's a kid that Marcus had taught like little league football or basketball to in the past, and they find out that he is possibly involved in the guy who's running around killing folks for this cartel. So they go there, they chase this guy down. Mike, this is one of those scenes that it's not necessarily Michael Bay, but it has some questionable CGI thrown in, some practical effects. But they're racing on a motorcycle with a little minigun on top of like the sidecar, and they're chasing after this guy, and then they end up finally catching him, slap him around a little bit. Mike steals his phone, and then the guy runs off, and so they chase him some more, and then they're back on another freeway. It's typical with Bad Boys, there's always freeway chases. And once on this freeway, they start getting shot at by a helicopter, so they kind of split off and go over here to hide, in essence. And then the bad guy, Swat Lee or whatever his name is, he gets on the ladder that the helicopter threw out. He's trying to climb up, and then you see Will Smith take off running, jump, grab the ladder, start to pull himself up. And then he sees the guy, Armando, I believe is his name, and he shoots the Swat Lee character just so he can get a shot at Mike. Then he says to him, "Hasta la fuego," and Mike drops off, goes into the water. And that phrase triggered something in Mike. So once they go back, then Mike goes back with the ammo people, and they see that Internal Affairs is there looking into all their business. Of course, with the death of Captain Howard, along with this massive, chase that they just had through downtown Miami up on an interstate. Then, they're like, okay, we're going to shut this down. But Mike is able to hack the phone, put the pieces together, and see that it is this woman who you find out a little bit later that Mike actually had a prior relationship to while he was undercover, fresh out of the academy, per Captain Howard's wishes. And that's why the guy was trying to kill all these people, because they were all connected to this case. Specifically, Mike is connected to the case, but he was hidden because he was undercover at the time. And, Mike kind of theorizes that, possibly, spoiler alert, that this might be his kid because he was engaged in a sexual relationship with the woman, and they were in love, and they were going to run off together. But he realized that she was really just this cold-hearted woman, cold, calculating murderer. So Mike ended up turning her in with the rest of the cartel members. She was sent to jail. She had a baby in jail. Mike looks at the stats, and he's like, oh man, it works out right. He's the right age and everything. He has my skill set. He's fearless. He does crazy shit. So he might be my kid. So at that point, he gets the phone, sends a message. The guy sends a message back to him. And Mike then makes a plan that he's going to go off, slip into Mexico to try to speak with the woman and try to end it all, and maybe try to reconcile with his son that he never knew he had. Well, he talks Marcus into it. He says, this one's for Captain Howard. One last time, Bad Boys for life. Let's go do it. So Marcus goes, and they get down to Mexico, and they go and they buy a bunch of really crappy guns from, a contact that he has down there. He's like, this is it, Mike. This is the last time for Miami. And he's like, okay. And at that point, the other ammo crew comes in, and you find out that Marcus, who had already called him in the past on an earlier set of the mission, he called him again and brought him in, and Mike's actually happy about it. So they make the plan to go to this old church where the cartel is hanging out at to try to get the woman and get the Armando, or the main assassin guy, who may or may not be Mike's son. So they go in there and they find out that it was a trap. They were all sent in. Marcus gets captured, of course. They brings him in as Mike's talking to the woman. They have a little moment there, and then a firefight breaks out, and Marcus gets in a fight with Mike's ex-squeeze, who then beats up Marcus a little bit before I think he's finally able to like throw her against a wall or something, knocks her out for a moment. And there's really cheesy CGI scene where Marcus shoots the helicopter pilot, and then the helicopter crashes, setting everything on fire. And then Will Smith has a fight with his son, who the woman did actually confirm that it is Mike's son, and that she never told him that that's Mike, that Mike is the father. She just kept that from him. She told him basically Mike is the one that betrayed us all. So they fight a little bit, and Mike gets the upper hand, but he can't kill his son, so he just like puts him in a chokehold and knocks him out a little bit. And then, he gets up and he starts fighting Mike. He's like, I'm not going to do anything to you. I'm not going to fight back. And then the woman shows up again, pulls the gun on Marcus, and Mike is there, and he's like, tell her it's true. And then the son's like, no, you're not my father. And then the woman ends up confirming that, yes, Mike is your father. And he gets mad, kind of stands in between Mike and his mother. But she's, of course, crazy at this point. She just wants to kill Mike. She pulls up a gun to shoot, and the boy jumps in front of Mike, taking a bullet in the shoulder. And then Mike and his son end up saving Marcus, who got knocked off and was about to fall into the fire. And they pull him out, and they walk out of the cartel as the little old church that they're in, burns down, with a bit of a reconciliation. And he tells him, he's like, you're going to have to do your time for what you did. He's like, but I'm going to be there for you. And then it cuts to another scene where, Marcus and them are happy. They're back at the house, and, Mike gets left with a kid, while Marcus and his wife go on a spa day because, they always throw in something sexual. Marcus and his wife hadn't had any quality time for a while because of the kids and everything. So Mike gave him a spa day or a trip, and he gets left with the baby. After Mike is left with the baby, the screen goes black for a little while, and then it comes up on another scene at the prison where you see Armando behind in a cage, and Mike comes walking up to him, and they make some small talk about he's serving his time. And then Mike says to him, "Well, do you want to get some of that time paid? May have a job for you." So it sets up for the fourth Bad Boys movie. Like I said, this is a really good film in terms of what it is. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. It's entertaining. There's a little bad CGI here and there, but again, I can understand that because the characters, Martin Lawrence, Will Smith, are getting a little older. So some of the stunts and things like that, they obviously went for more CGI than practical effects. But it's pretty fast paced. The humor's there, and the chemistry between Martin and Will is very good, as it always is. So it makes for a pretty good flick. I would absolutely recommend it. Go out and see it. This one is, I don't want to say it's the best of the Bad Boys films because it doesn't have Michael Bay as the director, but it is a pretty good film. I do think it is probably better than the second one in terms of being coherent, unlike that one was. And it's probably about on par with the original Bad Boys film, in my opinion. It's definitely worth watching if you got the time. Go out and check it out in theaters. Other than that, thank you. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good day.